Hello and welcome. My name is Nick. I'm from Holden Tech, and today we get to review a brand new product from Bluetti. This is their small yet mighty Bluetti AC2A. This unit is small, it's lightweight. We're going to go ahead and unbox it together. We're going to see what's actually in the box, and then I'll tell you a little bit more about the specifications of this product, and we'll do some testing as well. Let's go ahead and get this thing open. Okay. Okay, so what do we have inside? We have like a Russian doll of boxes. One box inside another, which is kind of really nice, because the shipping box is ideal for sending this thing through the mail or getting it delivered, but then you still have almost perfectly intact inner box as well. What do we have in here? We have what looks like the accessories. And then we have this little dinky power station. Let's have a look to see what we have actually here. We've got a cigarette lighter socket. We've got the 12 volt connector there for solar. The voltage range on this is 12 to 28 volts, maximum solar input of 200 watts. You've got your regular 12 volt cigarette lighter socket, which is good for 10 amps. You've got 100 watts worth of USB-C, so you can run your MacBook Pro with this particular device. You can charge many modern devices with this. You've got your old school USB-A connectors there as well. And you've got two 110 volt outlets. These are rated up to 600 watts peak, but ideally they're sort of set for 300 watts. So if you've got 300 watt loads with these, you shouldn't have too much of a problem running it. Quick look around the side. You've got a ground attachment here, where if you want to be extra safe, you can attach a ground screw to this, and then you've got your regular IEC connector that you can plug in there. There's no wireless charging on this. You don't have any flashlights on here. You've got your conformity labels on the back with a little bit more specification about the battery that's inside it. This unit has a 204 watt hour battery inside it. So if you used it in one go, you could draw from this around 200 watts for an hour, and then the battery's done, you need to recharge it again. Same goes if you were to run a 300 watt load. You might get somewhere around 35, maybe 40 minutes out of that before it's done. We're going to do some real world testing with this though, so you get a chance to see just how well this thing actually does. The accessories they give us, we have what looks like a Bluetti certificate. We also have that on the back of the user manual. The warranty behind this is backed by a 5-year warranty. This unit has lithium iron phosphate batteries in it, so you can expect 3,000 or more discharge cycles from this particular unit. Far more superior than many of the other sort of lithium ion battery technologies that are out there. This unit supporting UPS mode means that as a UPS it will probably last a lot longer than the sort of traditional lead acid UPS units that are out there. I run UPSs here on our network and on some of our critical loads, and I'm usually having to buy replacement batteries on those somewhere between every 3 and 5 years. So if we could get 5 years or more out of this, maybe closer to 10, then this is going to be significantly better than any UPS that I currently own. The accessories inside the box. We have the MC4 to the PV input for this particular device, and we've got the IEC, which is used for charging this thing or running it in UPS mode. And then lastly, but not least, if you choose to use it, there is a grounding pin in here as well, which basically allows you to attach a ground connection to this. If you're outside, if you're on a campsite or something like that, there might be some danger of a fault because maybe something's got damp or something's got wet. Then you can actually ground this thing out, and that bolt you can see there just attaches to the side, and you can attach a grounding cable to it. Anyway, let's have a look at some of the features of this device. We'll have a look at the features as on this device. We'll give you a close-up view, and then I can show you how the app works on this. Some of the features of the AC2A are: you've got an XT60, which is your input for solar. Voltage range 12 volts to 28 volts. Maximum charge rate of 200 watts. This is a regulated 12 volt cigarette lighter socket, and whatever your 12 volt cigarette socket can do in your car, this can do in just the same way. It's regulated at 12 volts, so there's a whole number of different devices that you can actually run through this device. You've got USB-C, which will run your latest, greatest iPads, iPhones. Laptops have been using this for a little while now. It's rated up to 100 watts. So that includes a whole range of devices. Anything up to 100 watts you're going to be able to run from this port without much of an issue. You've got your USB-A ports, which are for your traditional sort of USB charge devices. Probably the vast majority of devices are still using the USB-A standard. Your buttons on here, you've got your DC, you've got your AC, you've got your main power button, you've got your AC, and then you'll notice that you've got a clear, vibrant LCD display, which tells you the amount of charge that you're putting into the device, the percentage of how much left you've got in the battery, and how much power you're actually drawing out of this device as well. On the other side, you've got your 15 amp 110 volt power outlets, which will deliver up to 300 watts without too much of an issue. You can peak at 600 watts, and this device has the ability of being able to power lift some resistive loads like small heaters. So in the manual there's some documentation in there that shows you how you can enable that, and that's something that seems to work quite well. On this side is a traditional sort of IEC power connector. This connector is the same as commonly used in desktop PCs, monitors, so even if you were to misplace the power cable that came in the box, the chances are you're going to find one of these very, very easily, and you might even have one lying around somewhere. This connection here is used with the grounding screw that comes in the box, and so it's possible to bond the ground connector to the ground by means of using this connection here. On the back you've got some of your conformity related stuff. You've got some additional specifications about what goes into the battery, what the battery's rated voltage is, and its capacity. On the other side you've got your vent. This is the inflow of where the air goes into the unit to help cool it. And then on the other side, this is where the air is exhausted out of the side of this unit. Okay, so I've got a few tests to run on this. Some of them are going to be a little noisy, so we'll start first of all with the quiet in case you want to turn down headphones or anything else. We have a hair straightener. Not something I would normally use, but you know, you never know. If I go ahead and plug this thing in, power it up, switch on my AC load. Just waiting for that to start. I think it may be off here. There we go. So it looks like this may... I thought it was going to settle at around 100 watts, but it's not. It's still going up. 231, 241. I can hear it heating up. And it's now beginning to stabilize, I think. I'm not going to touch it, but I might try it on my hair just for giggles. I believe this is the highest setting that it's on, so let me see if I can turn it down. No, it seems to have an on and an off, and I think it has a thermostat. I can feel that it's hot, and I've got no doubt that it probably is. Yeah, it's hot. Okay, that works. Okay, so let's go ahead and turn that off, and then I have a tool that I often use, and so noise alert. If you're wearing headphones, now's the time to turn it down. This is a heat gun, which is commonly used for shrink wrapping, heating components for test purposes. What we're going to try and do is we'll try and run this thing, and I will put some shrink wrap on my screwdriver, and that will show you what kind of current that we're using, and also that we are actually delivering plenty of heat. So let's go ahead, excuse the noise. What wattage we were using, 275. See it shrinking. We're still going, we haven't tripped this thing out. There we go. So we passed on that one too, and my shrink wrap is looking good. I've got some other equipment here as well which we can try as well. This one is going to be noisy. This is just going to be a regular drill. Okay, I'll put it under the table to quieten it down a bit. That one peaks at about 221 watts. Now I've got no doubt that the wattage that this drill would use would be quite a bit higher if you were actually doing work with it. And this is where the sort of powerlifting feature of it comes into its own. Because while we have an upper limit of around 300 watts on this, the power lift will actually allow you to go a little over that, provided that you know, the drop in voltage, the slight drop in voltage that you're going to encounter isn't going to cause any harm to the equipment that you're using. This one's for the ladies again. This is a test to see whether, you know, you're on travel and you have a need to use a hairdryer. Not something I use very often, but you know, it's a test that's worthwhile. And it's probably worth seeing it's probably worth us seeing what actually happens when we actually overload this thing. So I've actually got this on the lower setting at the moment, so we can set it to low. We can give it a bit more fan as well. Let's give it more heat. And you heard the sound of the fan there, so that's kind of the power lift at work, basically, where you are allowed to go a little over the 300 watts, but not by a huge margin. One of the beauties of the AC2A is that there is no external power brick. The accessories in the box were minimal. We had a cable to attach your solar panels, the MC4 to PV input, and then you had this IEC cable as well. If we plug it in, you can use that cable to charge this device, and the actual profile, the charging profile that this comes in the box, similarly to charging in solar panels, this thing is going to max out at around 128, 130 watts, and that's all you'll get. The plus side is that if you charge lithium iron phosphate batteries at a lower rate, they're probably going to last you a lot longer, to be honest with you. This thing is capable of charging much faster than the 129 watts that it's charging at right now. You see me looking at my phone, I basically have the app so I can actually see what's on the screen here, but if I change the charging profile on this thing for you, you can see how much faster that you can go with charging this thing up. So we're now 262 watts going in. I don't have an ETA on this thing, so the screen will tell me that probably in around half an hour it's currently forecasting that this thing might be fully charged. The app allows you to do some other stuff too as well. You can switch on your DC loads, you can switch on your AC loads as well if you want to, and I'm just doing that in the app for you now so you can actually see these lights come on the front. I'm hearing a little bit of fan noise. It's not annoying. I'm sure if I was hearing that for a long time though, then it would probably annoy me in the end. If I change the charge profile to silent mode, the fan stopped immediately, and now we're charging at a rate of 79, 80 watts, which is fine. I must admit, if I was running this in UPS mode, this is probably the mode that I'd probably leave it in, because I probably wouldn't hear any fans running in it, and it might be less aggressive on the battery, you know, especially when the charge level drops a little bit and then the unit decides that it wants to charge itself back up again. The next test seems appropriate to run a UPS test on this to see how this thing does. So one moment please while I just prepare for that setup. Okay, so for this test I have a rather old Gateway netbook computer which actually still works well. So what we'll do to make the test fair and valid, we will go ahead and remove the battery, and I'll set that aside. I will plug this in. Let's open the screen. You might not be able to see the keyboard in shot, but let's see whether you can see the screen. Yep. Let's give this some AC power, which it's already got, and let's power this thing up. And I'll just wait a moment for this thing to boot. I'll just wait for it to sit at the login screen, so just in case this thing did crash, it's probably not going to do much harm to the hard drive. And yes, it is Windows 7. Okay, so let's go ahead then. This is currently plugged into mains power. I can see that we have an absolute minimum draw that's coming from this. In fact, the app isn't really measuring how much power that this is actually using, which is actually not uncommon. If you have a really small load, it's quite possible that you might not see any power usage on there. If I was to add something else to it, which I think I will, I have a fluorescent light here, and you'll see why in a second why I chose to use this. Okay, so I wanted to see that the load actually changed on this thing, and now it reckons that we're consuming about 24 watts. Now I can see that there's 108 watts coming in from the grid, so it looks like it's able to still charge the battery in its silent profile, but any extra power draw on this thing it's able to supply. Now I'll unplug this and you might see in a second why I decided to use a fluorescent light in this shot, so let's see what happens. If I can pull this thing out, I'll pull it out from here instead, it's easier. Okay, so you might have saw that just momentarily, but there was a momentary flash as this unit actually transitioned from mains power to battery power, and it's not bad. It just gives you a visualization that there is a transition that's taking place, but that transition is fast enough that it didn't affect the laptop in any way. So let's plug it back in again. And I did see a momentary transition from this again, and then for fun we'll just go and pull power to this thing, and then you might see just a momentary flash from the light again. Okay, so we've just learned something in the last just the last couple of minutes. So there were two things I learned. One was I could get a little bit more juice out of this power supply, and so we can see what happens when we go over the 30 volt threshold, so you can see what happens. And so then it trips out. If you bring the voltage back down, then it should reset. Might be looking for a little bit less. Yeah, and it's gone ahead and reset. Now that's going to stabilize at around 131 watts going in, and this is going to be the maximum. So one of the things I verified was the charging profile on this is currently set to standard. So if you take delivery of one of these, that is the charging profile that's used by default. If I change the charging profile, and this is where you're actually better off using the app, this is kind of a little what the interface actually looks like, and then I'm going to screen capture this for you later on so you can see how it works. We're in a standard charge profile at the moment. If we set it to turbo mode, let's set my phone down aside for a second. Let's try, so you can see straight away, look, that we're up to 198 watts charging. So if you're in a hurry to get this thing charged on solar, you can get this going. Now you can also go over the 28 volt limit on this, provided that it's already charging. If you suddenly just show, 28, 29 or 29 volts to this thing, it's most likely going to trip. But as this is already charging, as long as you don't go over that, say 29 volt, 30 volt threshold, then you're probably going to be okay. The other thing to bear in mind is that if you're going to continue using the turbo mode on this thing, I would not expect to get the life out of the batteries, as you would if you were on silent or if you were running this thing in standard mode. Anyway, that's our simultaneous or our simulated our simulated solar test done. And what we'll do is we'll try plugging this thing directly into the IAC connector on the side, and we'll see what the charging profiles actually look like there as well, so you can see how fast or how slow this thing is capable of charging. Off you go then. The Bluetti AC2A, so small, so lightweight. Even a 10-year-old could carry it. Not even struggling with it, look. Here we have a little side-by-side comparison between the EB3A and the AC2A. The most significant differences between the two is the AC2A doesn't have the wireless charging pad on the top, whereas the EB3A does. The EB3A also has a flashlight built into it. This one does not. The other difference is the solar input. So if you're used to your 9mm barrel connections, the AC2A uses instead an XT60. Not so commonly used are the 5mm barrel connections to give you 12 volt output. Those are missing on here as well. The other difference that you have is that the inverter on this is rated for 600 watts, whereas the inverter on this one is rated at 300 watts. So the AC2A is definitely more suited for your smaller, more lightweight loads. This one comes with a smaller battery. The actual battery capacity in this one is 204 watt hours, whereas this EB3A, you've got 268 watt hour battery from this one. And that's just a very, very high level overview of what the differences are between these two units. As far as size goes, you'll see that there's a little bit of a difference in size as well. The EB3A being heavier than the AC2A, and that's what you're looking at on the other angle. The other difference is that the display you can configure on the AC2A to be always on, if that's what you really want. The display on here, you're stuck with the factory timeout on this one. Not a big problem. I'm being spoilt by being able to configure this one, and I like this better. Okay, welcome to the Bluetti app. This is running on an iPad, although this will run on iPhones. It'll also run on Android devices as well. For this demo, I'm actually going to go into offline mode. So I'm actually within fairly close proximity of the AC2A. I'm going to go ahead and connect to it. And this is basically what's going on currently with my device. So we have some solar panels connected to it. We're generating about 61 watts at the moment. And then you see we're pulling in 26 watts from the grid. Our charge 61%. And then some of the controls that you have here, you can switch on and switch off your DC loads. I don't think I have anything plugged into DC at the moment, but I do have a lamp that's plugged into the AC load, and you can see that wattage showing up there as well. Battery information, you can have a little look in here. There's a little bit of information that you might be able to get, things like serial number, state of charge, if there's any alarms, error messages, anything going on, you know, with its protection status, you know, if the battery pack's too hot, too cold. This is where you might be able to see some of that information. A couple of other things to note in here as well. You can go into the top right hand side to go into settings. This is where you can change your charging profile. So the primary use for this device for me is going to be to have a couple of these replacing my UPS devices around the house. So this is going to have power backup for, you know, my internet router, cable modem, satellite internet, things like that, telephone, just to name a few items. And the charging mode is set to silent to minimize the amount of fan noise that's going on there. If you go ahead and change this, I'm going to change it to a much more aggressive charge profile. If I go back in here, you can see straight away that now we are pulling, you know, quite a bit more power basically from grid and from PV. So this thing is charging at nearly 300 watts. It's going to start charging pretty quickly if we leave it this way. For longevity though, I don't recommend leaving it in turbo mode. For my application, it's silent is going to be fine. Powerlifting is used if you are likely to encounter loads more than 300 watts. It'll allow you to go over, but what's going to happen is that you will end up, you know, reducing some voltage on those loads. So you can certainly try and use it, especially if you're using, you know, motorized loads, resistive loads, things like that. It can be a handy setting to have just to give you a little bit more power than what this thing is normally rated at. Eco mode. Now if you're running on AC power, then if you're running 10 watts or less, then this unit is capable of shutting itself down if it's on battery mode only, and it will do that in this case after 4 hours. And then you can change the parameters in here if you really wanted to. The same also goes for DC power as well. So you can either set your thresholds in here if you want to. I see the limit is 5 through 10, so okay, that's fine. Or if you want to switch it off altogether, then you can, you know, turn off this auto power off feature as well. The auto sleep, which I've currently got set to never, is the display on the front of this unit. So the actual default it comes with is 30 seconds. I was talking about this a little earlier in my video, assuming I didn't have to cut it out for any reason. But you can see the thresholds here. I think the standard is 30 seconds, but you can set it to 1 minute, 5 minutes, or you can set it to never. So I'm leaving mine on never at the moment. I don't know whether the LEDs in the display will fail prematurely as a result of that, or whether they will continue to work, but maybe sort of less intensity as they age. Anyway, that is your quick overview of the Bluetti app that's used for controlling their more recent Bluetti power generators. This application doesn't control all of them, but certainly does control some of the more recent items that you see currently for sale. In conclusion, this device works really well on smaller loads of up to 300 watts. You can run larger resistive loads if you enable the power lift feature of it. It is essentially 200 watts or thereabouts in a box, and so you've got, you know, portability, you've got flexibility. It's not too heavy to carry around. It's dirt cheap. There are a couple of different places that you can buy your Bluetti AC2A solar generator. You can either visit the links in the description below, or you can visit Bluetti Power. There are a few different product offerings that are available on this website. So if you want whole house power systems, there are some of those. There are federal tax credits that are available for those much larger systems. Alternatively, the smaller sort of power stations that are available, then you have those listed in here as well. In addition, you can also get the AC2A from Amazon. You do a search in the description here under Bluetti AC2A, and these are some of the results that you have. The actual list price typically on these you can see listed here. Occasionally there are discounts that can be available, or there can be coupons that are available, so check back often. And then just to show you, there's a few price differences as well with dedicated UPS systems. Now, my video here referenced UPS a few times in the video, and you can buy dedicated UPS systems. Generally these will have lead acid batteries in them, so you don't get the same cycle count that you'll get of a lithium iron phosphate battery. So lithium iron phosphate batteries will give you about 3,000 charges, up to sort of 80% state of charge. These devices really, they'll give you charge discharge cycles in the tens really. Once you start charging and discharging a lead acid battery through most of its charge capacity, then you'll notice that the batteries on those don't perform so well over time. And if you're looking at pricing here as well, you know, you've got them listed here, $109, $219. You can see listed here for some of these larger systems you got $1,049. You got $164 here. So for me, if I was spending this kind of money, then the AC2A gives you a lot more than just being a UPS, you know, that's supporting, you know, your critical loads at home. You've got the portability and you can take and use this anywhere. Whereas the UPSs that you see here, they're basically designed to be plugged into utility power all the time.